Hello, guys, and welcome to Softown's first live. I'm really excited about this live. I hope you find it interesting, and I will try my best to deliver value to you in this 1 hour with me. First of all, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Raif Kandel. I am a very experienced programmer, uh, 15 years of experience, almost 16 years of experience. I just worked with big governments, big telecommunication companies, and I'm really excited today because I'll get to mentor you in this 1 hour session with me. And it will be very, very, very interesting session. And I would love to hear your comments, anything you have got to say. I'll just really love to hear. And what I'm going to tell you about today is a very common interview question. So if you guys are planning to go for an interview, and I have went for many interviews, quite a few actually, and I know for a fact that the worst thing that could happen to you is for you to get asked a question that you don't know. And I don't want this to be happening to you. I don't want this to be happening to anybody, basically, because it is not really fun to be stuck there in a chair with a question that you don't know. This is why I thought about making this video for you, just to give you some my knowledge on how to answer this type of question. And I hope you find it interesting. So I think I've talked too much. Why not just share my screen and just show you the question that I'm talking about here. I hope you like it. So this is the PowerPoint that I've prepared for you guys. Let's start with here, the interview question. You'll find a lot, and it is called sliding window. It's quite a strange name, I know, but this is what it's called basically. First, I hope you guys can hear me well. So it's called sliding window. I will not be able to read all your chats while I am doing this live because I'll be switching between the PowerPoint presentation here and the chats, and I will be coming over to the chats every once in a while to see if you have any questions for me, and I will be going to the chat at a very specific time to just make sure that you are ahead of what I am telling you and grasping everything that I tell you very well. So aliens are invading us. I know it's quite dramatic. I know you're not believing it. Don't worry, it's not happening. But the thing here is I'm trying to make it interesting, and I'm a big fan of horror movies, so I thought of making it, giving it a little bit of horror touch there. Nothing is happening, you guys. Don't look out of the window. There are no UFOs. Nothing is going to be attacking us. But anyway, so mathematicians have discovered that they're firing beams on us. And these beams are composed of signals. And these signals there are 26 signals. And they mapped it quite well to the letters of the alphabet. So this is the mathematicians that they were trying to figure out how to decode this signal and what to make out of it and how to make a counter signal. They got stuck because they wanted to know, as one of their many problems, how many distinct characters are there in this wave, so that they just want to know this number. How many distinct characters, one right after the other, in a particular wave that they have got. You can imagine the pressure on them. So yes, so what they want to know is that they want to know the longest, as I said, signals of distinct characters. I know you want to get right into it. So this is the input and this is the problem. So the problem here is that we have characters And these characters, like for example, let's take this input as an example input, A, B, D, S, D to the end of the string. And the output in this case is going to be 4. And the question is, why 4? And the answer to this, if you go from the beginning of the string and start counting A, B, D, S, this is 4. And then D, well, characters are repeating, so I need to reset the counter. So I go back to the S and start counting 1, 2, 3, and so forth until the end of the string. And this is when I get to the number 4. If you go through this exercise till the end, you will find that the longest number of distinct characters is 4. I'll give you some time to have a look and figure out this one out by yourself. Okay, so one thing I forgot to tell you, there is a nice surprise at the end. And if you are familiar with the sliding window technique, I think it is still worth you staying with me, because I will make a better implementation for it, a slightly better implementation for it that Softan has thought about itself, and it will really, add value to you. And there is a nice surprise question at the end, and if you get it, you will get a surprise from Softan. Okay, so please stick around, and please do contribute and have all your nice comments. I love them all. Okay, so the first solution, the brute force approach. So the brute force approach, basically the brute force approach is the kind of approach that you will, it's not very efficient and it's not highly performant, but it does respond to the problem accurately, and it just, for shorter inputs, it always works fine. So this is the brute force approach. It's the longest and most tedious and most predictable kind of approach. It doesn't take much of creativity, and it doesn't really make anything wrong, but it's also not a highly performant one. So this is the brute force approach. We have an A, B, D, S until the end of the string. I and J are stuck at the beginning at the A at index 0, and the max is 0. And then we start incrementing the J one by one and determining the maximum. So as you can see, until S, the J is 4, and then J is proceeding, and max is still 4 because it has broken when it reached S, because it has realized that D is repeating itself. So it will go all the way, J will go from all the way from 1 to the end of the string, and then I will increment by 1, and then J will go all the way from the second index of the I until the end, and then it will increment by 1 again, and so forth until the end of the string. So this is the first approach that we have. So this is basically the algorithm. The algorithm says loop I from 1 to n, and loop j from I to n, and loop k from I to j, and count the number of distinct characters and set the maximum number of characters. So this is basically the algorithm, and I'll explain it further. It is like you have the I that we have seen before. We just go to the J. In the previous slide, we have seen that. And whatever is in the string between the two pointers, we'll just loop through it. And if there are any non-distinct characters, we will just terminate the loop. Otherwise, we'll keep on counting and comparing with the maximum and determining if we have a potential new maximum or not, until we finish all. And when we are finished, we know that we got the maximum right. So there was no really element of surprise there. This is the brute force approach. So this is our JavaScript code. And as you can see here, so let max equal 0, and then loop from from 0 to the length of the string, and increment the counter one by one, and then go to j. Start from I until the end of the string, increment one by one, and then set the frequency set to nothing basically, and then set the count to 0, and then iterate from I to j, increment by the k plus plus, by 1, increment the k by 1, and then if not, if you can't find this, this means that it is distinct. If not, frequency s of k, then you count, and then you determine the maximum equals math.mask, max count or max, and then frequency s of k. You increment it, and otherwise you just break the loop and you return the max. So this is basically what we had in the algorithm, just detailed out in JavaScript code. And you might have this question of why are we using a JavaScript code? And the answer to this question is JavaScript is the second most popular language. So it's quite popular, and JavaScript is supports both object-oriented and functional paradigm. So it's quite interesting language. And if you know Node.js as well as JavaScript, you are a full stack developer. How beautiful is that? But I do understand that, you might come from a different background. And in this case, I would really encourage you to try to make the same in your own language. For example, if you know C++, that's great because C++ is very good for competitions. But why are competitions so important? Well, competitions are important because they really upskill you, and big companies like Google and Facebook, they look for these competitions for replacement in their companies, because they know if you are scoring really high in competitions, you must be good. Not only that, they also will make their own competitions, and they will place you as well if you are good. So this is why competitions are important. C++ is a very popular language for competitions. Python is more popular than JavaScript. So whatever language, there is nothing wrong with it. The idea is with the concept itself. Now, one thing you might wonder about is, what is this frequency s of k? Frequency s of k equals 0. I'll just mark it for you to understand, to know what I'm talking about here. So this is this one. What does that mean? This is a JavaScript thing, and if you are coming from a non-JavaScript background, probably you wouldn't know what that is. So I better explain it to you. First, let me see if you have any questions. I'm just curious here. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any questions. Guys, ask questions, guys. Guys, I need some interaction from you. I need to feel, that you are watching and you are interacting and so forth. I hope the sound is well. If there are no comments, probably it is. So that's good. Okay, so I'll just go there in the console. I'll say undefined. Or now everything in JavaScript, the interesting thing is everything in JavaScript returns a value. There is nothing that doesn't return a value. Let's say, for example, function s. You would think it doesn't return a value, but it does. It returns undefined. Now, if I say undefined or true, it will return something as well. It will return true. Because, this is just how it works. So I'm making use of the same thing, because if I just initialize f to a new object, which I'm going to use as a set, and then I'm going to just initialize s to something, which is my string. Okay, so s is already used, I guess, because I used it for the function s. I don't know what's with the s that I'm using too much today. So let's use another one. Here, any string here. Okay, so again, you see it returns something. If I just say f and then s of 0, it will return undefined, not what I want. Because if I add this undefined to 1, I'll get not a number. So this is not my best option again. So what do I do here? I just take this one and OR it with 0. So what does that return? It returns 0. It's like undefined or true equals true. Undefined or 0 equals 0. And then I add 1 to it, so I get 1, which is what I want. So this is why I ORed it with, this is why I ordered it with 0 to get a 0 and then added 1 to it. I hope this makes sense. I think this is one of the things that I do use a lot in JavaScript, not just me. Everybody just uses a lot in JavaScript. Now, and is the opposite, but we don't need to talk about this now. I don't want to over confuse you. Here, the concept is just take this and, loop over I and then loop over J, and it's pretty straightforward. There is no magic. Everything happens in a perfect way, and this is the brute force approach. Now, no questions are so dumb. What is this? What is no questions are so dumb? Well, this is our motto, basically, because we tend to think in Softon that if you ask a basic question, that's a very important question that you should be asking. And not the smartest people are the ones with the most advanced questions. Actually, the people who are the bravest in asking the most basic questions have the biggest potential in the software market. This is just our philosophy. So are all the strings here included? Remember, J starts from I. Shouldn't it start from 0? No, the question here is a very good one. It says, okay, so I starts from 0 and J starts from I. Why shouldn't it start from 0? And are there any strings that are omitted? And the answer to this question is, well, let's say I equals 0 and J equals 5. Well and good. Now let's swap. Let's say I equals 5 and J equals 0. Well, first of all, K will not loop from 5 to 0. It should map from 0 to 5. So this is why I should be always less than J. But that aside, they're the same string. Whether I is 0 or J is 0, we're just flipping the same string. And therefore, it doesn't really matter whether it is I equals to 0 or J equals to 0. We are talking basically about this very same string, and therefore it's not important. And all the strings here are included, but a very good question. Okay, so frequency S of K, or frequency S of K, or 0 plus 1. What does this statement mean? Are you sure you know what you're doing? Well, yes, we explained this one, so I wouldn't go through it further. Yes, this is a valid JavaScript syntax that I explained to you, and it is a very nice shortcut that people use often in JavaScript. I is less than s.length shouldn't go all the way up to the length rather than stopping before s.length. Well, this is a very good question. Now, if you are an experienced if you're experienced Java programmer or C++ programmer or any programmer, you would know that it is usually zero-based array. So if we go all the way and touch the length, it is going to actually exceed the array bounds. So, for example, if you are talking about as an array, and this array goes all the way, it has a length of 4, so on 0 to 3 is actually 4, because 0, 1, 2, 3 is 4. Okay, so this is why we don't go all the way to s.length, and we stop before s.length. Okay, but a very good question. By the way, guys, if you want to see This code, well, I'm going to share it on GitHub soon. Not today probably, but maybe tomorrow. Okay, so any questions from your end? I will be looking for questions here. I'll go back to the chat and look for questions. I hope you ask me some questions because I like questions. I'll give you 1-2 minutes to ask any questions you might have. I'm waiting, guys. Give me some questions. You know what? You guys don't know me yet, but I am quite interactive person and I like the interaction. This way I feel so lonely. So please, guys, give me any question at all. I love questions. I'll give 1 more minute. Okay, questions don't seem to be coming, so I'll just move on to the next slide. Okay, so again, what is wrong with this code? This code seems fine, so what's wrong with it? It's working, right? So what's wrong with it? Now, why don't we copy paste this code in our live editor? But before I do that, I just want to check that, you know, my screen is getting shared probably, and I think it is because sometimes I do this nasty mistake of not sharing my screen and just moving on and just babbling on and then discovering 1 hour later that I haven't been saying what I'm supposed to be saying. So it's quite embarrassing. And the worst thing with live, you don't hear actually the people screaming at you and telling you, hey, you forgot something. So you sort of have to figure it all out on your own. Okay, so I'll just take this one and I'll go in my live coder and I'll just paste my code here. I hope you guys can see. If not, please let me know. Okay, so I'm just going to paste this one here too. And as you can see here, we have a loop protection. That means just it went for so far because we do have a long string here. And this long string it couldn't process, so it figured out it's an infinite loop. It's not really an infinite loop. It is just going on for too long. So obviously, when mathematicians was faced with such an issue, they just went back to the programmers and they said, thank you very much, but this is not what we're looking for because the wave is quite long and the signal is quite numerous and we need a more performant algorithm to work with because this will give us a better results. And actually, it will give us the results that we are looking for. The time complexity of this algorithm is O to of n cubed. And if you guys are wondering what is this, I will tell you. N cubed just means that, you know, this is the worst time complexity, and the worst time complexity is that we'll loop through everything one by one. Every part has a nested loop inside it. So the worst case scenario is that we will loop n cubed time, which is n by n by n. So it's n cubed, which is, you know, ridiculously not performing as well as it should. So, okay, so we already tested on real data. We don't need to worry about this. And then we will talk about the incredible sliding window technique, which I'm so fascinated about. Look, I only talk about this because it's fascinating, and I hope you get as fascinated by it as I am. What I'm offering here is quality education for free, okay? Because you can pay a lot of money for these things, but I'm offering it totally for free because I'm just, I just believe that everybody deserves to know these things, It will save a lot of you in many situations if you just know these simple things, and they are not rocket science. People think that programming is only for rocket scientists. This is not true. Programming is for everybody. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Okay, so sliding window technique, you just go from I to j, and then j will be 1, and then the max is going to be 2, j is going to be 3, max is going to be 3, j is going to be 4, or actually 3, index 3, but element 4, and the max is going to be 4. And then after that, it will realize that it needs, after going to D, it will realize that there is some duplications using the frequency set. Now, the frequency set is a very fascinating concept. If you're not familiar with it, maybe you can leave it in the comment, and I will be happy to address it. And then after that, the I is going to proceed. So the I will proceed after the J after the D, as J reaches the D, the I is going to proceed and is going to remove an element from the frequency set, and then it will proceed to D, and it will remove it from the frequency set, and then it will proceed to the S, and then the J is going to realize, oh my God, there is no D now, so I need to proceed. So the D will proceed further, and this is how the window slides. It's very, descriptive name, sliding window, because it is as if they are sliding the window one by one this way. Now, this is the algorithm for it. While j is less than n, if item j is not repeated, increment j and calculate max. Else, reset frequency item I and increment I. Very easy algorithm, very straightforward. So if basically what it says, if item j is not repeated, so it's like this is its first time, and we use a frequency set to tell us that, we'll increment the j and we calculate the maximum, and the maximum either it is going to be calculated, or if the window size is less than the maximum, it's going to just retain its previous maximum, and at the end it will return the maximum after finishing these iterations. So this is our second part of our coding, and this is again in JavaScript. And it's going to say let I equals 0, j equals 0, max equals 0, and the frequency is an empty set. And while j is less than s dot length, if not s of j, we'll get the alphabet as j plus. And I don't know if you are familiar with j++ or ++j. I'm going to mention it anyways because I think it's worth mentioning. So the concept here is very easy, I believe. What it talks about here is let's say let m equals 0, and then we say console.log m++. What will that do? This will still be 0. However, if we say console.log m here, we're going to find it's 1. What happened there? The thing with m++, it will just increment after the operation is finished. So after it finishes its operations, it is going to increment. Whereas if we say console.log ++m, it's going to say 2 because it incremented before performing the operation, which is in this case a simple console.log. So it's the same here. So if we say here that the alphabet is sj++, it is going to get the current, the j element at the current counter, and then after it assigns it to the alphabet, it's going to increment it, which is what we want, because we're going to use the frequency of this alphabet to increment the counter for the alphabet at the of the frequency of the current alphabet by 1. And then we should say the math equals math.max, max j minus I, which is the size of the window. Else, we just go to the frequency si++. Again, we are using the same concept. We're going to set it to 0, and we are going to move on. Now, the not frequency s of j, it is going to work for 0. So if we say f0, we will get actually false. This will return false if it is 0. Okay, so we can actually test this one out. Why not do it? I'm feeling good, guys. I'm feeling too good. If we say if 0, okay, so let's say if not 0, do something. Console.log hello. And my expectation is I am testing this for the first time, but it should work. If not 0, because it is false, it will print hello, because 0 is false. So it's the same here, okay? If j is less than s.length, if not frequency, so if it is 0 and we are setting it to 0 here, it will set to 0. And once the I becomes the element at the I that's clogging up the j is going to proceed further this way. Does this make sense? Do you guys have any questions? I'll go back to the chat window and check if you guys have any questions that I might answer. Okay, no questions. I'll proceed. That's too good. Okay, so this is how it works here. So if it will return the max. And then after that, we have this one, which the no questions are too dumb again. Wow, I love this thing. No questions are too dumb. I do believe that this is the case. Okay, so how j minus I is compared to the maximum? What if j equals 3 and I equals 2? The length of the string should be 2. However, 3 minus 2 equals to 1. That's really beautiful question. Well, the question here basically says, what if I have I at 2 and j at 3, and the string size should be 2 if you think about it, but we are just using j minus I to determine the size of the window, which doesn't make any sense if you think about it. And my answer to this one is, first of all, you are brilliant. And second of all, if you think about it, j++ here will make it not 3, it will make it 4. It took the current alphabet from it, and then it incremented. So j becomes 4, and therefore 4 minus I, which is 2, it becomes 2. Why is the condition while j is less than s.length and not while j is less than s.length and I is less than s.length? Again, this is a very beautiful question, and my answer to this one is, okay, think about it. I'll give you some time to think about it, because I don't want to give you the easy answers here. I want you to think about it a little. Why is it that we're saying while j is less than s.length and not while j is less than s.length and I is less than s.length? I'll give you some time to think about it. Okay, I hope you figured this one out, and the answer to this one is, if j can never be, if this is done right, if there is no errors, j should always be less than or equal than I, because once we remove the item that is clogging up the j is going to proceed further and lead the way. So there is no way I would exceed the j unless we have something right. So this is not a possibility. If you are an advanced a programmer and you find this too boring, well, this one is for you. So after happy mathematicians came together and they figured out that this could actually solve the problem, this is at the time complexity of O2 of n. But we just say O of n, we don't say O2 of n. And why that? The reason why we say O of n and not O2 of n is because, at larger number, the factors don't really matter. The powers is what really matter. If you think about the curve, what's the difference between 2 of n and n? It's not so much. However, powers, it is so much, okay? So n cubed is totally different from n to the power 4. And this is why we usually ignore the factors here. So programmers follow through. In the heat of the moment, the programmer thought of an even better approach to the problem, which is great. We proudly devised this algorithm ourselves, and we think it is brilliant. You guys tell us what you think. And of course, it's up to you to decide what you think. But we think that is great, actually. And this algorithm is really, it's the same as a sliding window technique with a slight modification. And the difference between this algorithm and the other algorithm is that this algorithm actually determines the position of the eye in a smarter way. So it doesn't go one by one, it just heads right to it. So you can think of it, I don't slide the window, I push the window to where I need it to be. So the only thing that you can think of as different here is that instead of just giving the frequency of s of I to count, we are not letting it count. We are giving it the index of the previous string, and we are using the if condition here of frequency s of I equals undefined. So if you look at this line of code, you will understand a lot. Okay, so this line of code says frequency of s of I is not, we are not incrementing. You can remember the weird OR syntax that we were using. We're not using it anymore. We are giving it, as you know, that set has a key value pair. So the key becomes the alphabet and the value becomes the position where it is. So if we look anywhere, we are not maintaining 2 pointers here. We're just maintaining 1 pointer. And if we look anywhere here, we will find out that the frequency s of I actually heads right to the index. It stores the index of the current element rather than, storing the frequency. And if it's not found, if it finds an undistinct character, it just resets everything, the counter and the frequency array. And this actually works. I think it's interesting. I think it's worth looking at. I think it's worth thinking about. How does this actually work? It works because it does the same thing with a counter, and it will reset everything, and it will go right to where it belongs by resetting the counter to frequency s of I instead of setting the counter to to incrementing the counter. So I think it's more convenient. The I just goes to where it belongs, and it will take it from here. And this is, a slightly more efficient way of doing things. Now, if you think about these things, you say, okay, so what's the big difference? What's the big value? Well, there is a difference and there is a value. If you think about it in, larger and larger strings, when they become very complex, well, these things add a lot of value. I can think of another modification is that if you find the window size from this to the end of the string less than the max, you can break the loop, because you don't need to go through another iteration when you know that the maximum, a new maximum, will never be determined. So this is another way of doing this. Okay, so this is actually a reward question for you guys. And if you are able to answer this question, and you're going to have a surprise from Softan. But please don't get your hopes so big. Softan is on a very tight budget. However, you will get a surprise, and that's a promise. So, the question is, what is wrong with this? There is something wrong with this algorithm, and this algorithm will not perform like it should. And if you can figure out the reason why, you are a genius and you should get a surprise from Softan. Now the input is AAB, the expected output is 2, but the real output is 1. So what's there that really, is wrong, and why is it not doing what it's supposed to do? If you can get this one, you are a genius. I'll give you 5 minutes to try to figure it out. And if you're not able to figure it out, after these 5 minutes, unluckily, there will be no surprises, but you can still comment with the answer if you are able to determine what the answer is. But now your time limit is 5 minutes. After that, I will look at the comments, and if there's anything that will deserve a surprise, you will be assured that you will receive a surprise. I'll give you 5 minutes from now. I hope you guys are onto something. Just try your best. You don't have to be right. And if you think there is nothing wrong with the algorithm, maybe there is nothing wrong with the algorithm. Maybe it's a trick question. You never know. Just try to figure it out. This is not an easy one. I will give you that. It has a very subtle difference, and maybe it is best if you can use your browser to determine why it will not working. Maybe then you will get it faster. But you can do it. I believe in you. You see, the beauty of JavaScript is that you can run it anywhere. You can run it from the browser. You don't need any special IDEs. It's very convenient, and it's a very popular language as well. It is the second most popular language in the world. I know you will find that some say that C++ or C is the most popular language of the world, and this is not really right. The people who say that really, use and measure that counts the number of websites, but it doesn't really count what is trending now. And if you go to Google Trends and you just type in JavaScript and type in C++, you'll find that JavaScript is way over the top of C++. However, Python is clearly winning JavaScript. I wouldn't say no, but that's it. JavaScript is a very popular language. So if you are a new programmer, I would recommend you to prioritize knowing JavaScript because you can do lots of things with it, and you can go immediately to the market if you know it well, because you will be a web developer quite easily. Okay, guys, your time is up. I need to see the comments now. I hope you got this one out. And no comments. Okay, that's okay. So I'm not going to give you an answer. Maybe somebody watches the video later and he decides he can throw it in the comments. So I'd leave a little bit of suspense there. So anyways, I will just proceed with the next slide now, and we'll just introduce ourselves to you. And what do we do, and what is our attempt, and where do we fit in the market? And basically, we are viewing a gap, and I hope you are viewing it as well, between the market world and the academia world. And this gap, Softan just tries to fill up. What do I mean by that? Like the academia and the mathematical logic is working independently of the market, and the market is working independently of the academia. The market is focused on dollars values, and academia is focusing on academic value, and Softan is there to bridge this gap, because we believe that when we do that, if we are successful in doing that, we will be, we will help the software market flourish, which is really our attempt. Okay, so this is a very brief introduction about us. I hope you found this video interesting, and at the end, I would like to say thank you and just give a few moments for any questions that you might have. I will be happy to answer it, and that's it. I'll be looking forward for the next live. I will be making many of those, and the reason why I will be doing that is because I think that this will really help again close the gap between the market world and the academia world, which is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give information in the most undoubting way and really get you on your foot in the market as quickly as you should. Okay, so I'll give it a few moments for any questions that you might have, and then I will end up this live, and I will be looking forward to the next live with you. I hope you guys talk. You guys are very good listeners. You're not talking. Say something. Anything at all. Doesn't hurt. Anyways, you guys have been great. I really enjoyed, having this session with you. I think I had a lot of fun. I hope you did as well. And let's meet in the next session with more and more interview questions and me trying to, expand your knowledge about the computer science. I love the subject, which is very important as well. Thank you very much and have a great day, guys.